Good afternoon and welcome to the Meet Your Future campaign. My name is Jane and I'm part of the Bridge GM team at the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. Meet Your Future was launched in April 2019 as a way to enable more young people like yourself to have meaningful conversations with employers whilst experiencing different workplaces. Over the past 12 months, we've been speaking with young people from all across the 10 boroughs in Greater Manchester to find out how you are feeling and how you feel you could be best supported now and on into your future. We have been listening and we've learned a lot. So we have developed a suite of information and resources and services that are there to help you. This can be found on GMAX and I will pop the link in the chat. Many of you will already be familiar with GMAX, but if you're not, then please do speak to your teacher or careers leader to find out more information. We've also adapted the Meet Your Future campaign to better suit what you have been telling us, and throughout this academic year you've been able to join sessions and chat with Greater Manchester and national employees about growth sectors across the city region, different pathways and the vast array of career opportunities that are available to you right here in Greater Manchester. In this session you will hear from Daniela and Harriet, who will speak about their industry, their job roles and information surrounding that. Hopefully this session will inform you, inspire you and show you that there is reason to be hopeful and optimistic about your future here in Greater Manchester. Throughout this session, if you do have any questions, please make use of the question box and we'll cover these in the Q&A session at the end. If you would like to use captions or subtitles during this event, then please select captions/subtitles on in your video control panel. So without further ado, I would like to pass over to Daniela to introduce herself. Daniela, you're just on mute, sorry.
Sorry, yeah. Can we pass on to the first slide, please? Thank you. So yeah, I'm here with Harriet today, and we're going to be talking a little bit about women in civil engineering, which is the industry that we work for, and specifically the railway industry. So if you can pass on to the next slide. This is a little bit of like the structure of our presentation today. Next slide, please. So a little bit about myself. I'm a Portuguese civil and geotechnical engineer. I started my professional career in 2007 working as a geotechnical designer in Spain. And then in 2011, I moved to the United States to work as a researcher. I moved to the UK in 2014, as that's when I started working in Epoch Rail as an asset engineer first, and then I was promoted to senior asset engineer in 2018. You have a couple of photos of me doing my job, both on the office and whilst on site doing inspections. On a personal note, I love animals. I used to be a volunteer for the Warrington Animal Welfare, which is close to my house. And during lockdown, I fostered a cat, which I then adopted. That's Monty, and the photo is there so that you guys can see how cute he is. And then as well, a little bit about my interests. So I'm a STEM ambassador. And that's a science, technology, engineering, maths ambassador in schools. I participate in several events. And I'm also a committee member for the Women in Rail in Northwest. And we try to basically create a more diverse workforce in the railway. So I've included a couple of photos of some of the events I've organized with them. Now I'll pass over to Harriet.
Hi everyone, nice to meet you. So when I was at school, I didn't know what civil engineering was and I had no idea what I wanted to do. And so it was recommended by one of my teachers that I do maths and physics A-level and then that I go on to do civil engineering, which I did. And so I sort of went fairly typical route for university, graduate degree, and then a master's. And then I sent out my CVs just to different civil engineering companies and ended up in a company called Atkins, a consultancy, and in their tunnelling section, which again, I knew almost nothing about. And I love it. So it's a very sort of rewarding and challenging area. Every project is different and you see very different places. So I've been with Atkins Tunnelling for 21 years. And in that time, I've had about 7 years working overseas. So first in South Africa, then in Hong Kong, and then a few months out in the Middle East in Dubai. So in terms of the photos, the two on the left are different tunnels that I've helped design and I now have trains running through them, which is quite exciting. On the top right are the teams I worked with in South Africa, and then all of the female tunnelling engineers from our Hong Kong office in the top one. And then what I like to do in my spare time is archery. So I shoot the English longbow like Robin Hood, and actually all of last week I was down in Somerset at an archery competition. So I'll hand back to Daniela to talk more about civil engineering, what it is.
So yeah, to keep you a little bit engaged throughout the presentation we're doing, we have a few questions, and one of them is, what do you think a civil engineer does? So we have 8 options there for you to consider, and maybe you can pop in your answers on the Q&A if you want to participate with us. That would be great, and I can see it because I'm on the Q&A. So there's several options there. So from designing new infrastructure links to delivering sustainable energy sources, building flood and sea defenses, managing projects, decommissioning obsolete infrastructure and structures, managing civil engineering assets like structures, earthworks, buildings. And then the 8th option is all of the above and more. So civil engineers are creative people, and we in our day-to-day job do things to basically help people and make them live safer and easier lives. And I can see someone popped in an answer there, 8. Yes, that is correct. Civil engineers do provide a lot of the things we need on our lives, like clean water, energy, transport, and so much more. So it's a very rewarding career if you're interested, basically. So next slide, please. So I think this one's for Harriet to comment on.
Hi, yes. So we thought, as both of us are working in the rail industry, which is one of the elements of civil engineering that Daniela just mentioned, thought just talk slightly about the life cycle of a railway and how it affects what we both do. So to build any railway, you need to plan it and you need an Act of Parliament. Then obviously you need to design it and you build it, and then you pass it over to the people that are going to operate it and maintain it. And that could be for a long period of time. But then maybe you have new technology or new trains and you need to then enhance it or upgrade it. And you continue to operate it. And then at the end, you may decommission it. So there are a lot of railways, or there used to be a lot of railways in the UK that are now no longer operating, that they've been closed, and some of them have been turned into footpaths or maybe into cycle routes, and there may be some near you that you've regularly used. And then sometimes those routes then become reopened. So a new railway will be built and that will use parts of the old railway. So there's the new East-West rail you may be aware of, and that's going to be using parts of the existing railway network or the old railway network and reopening it as part of the new railway. And so in our 2 jobs, we work in slightly different areas of this. So I work on the side where we plan it and design and build it, and Daniela works in a section where it's maintained and operated. I think back to Daniela.
Yeah, so Jane, if you can move to the next slide. So yes, that's exactly what Harriet said. I work for Network Rail, and Network Rail is responsible for managing and operating the existing railway infrastructure in the UK. So safety is our #1 priority. Our vision is everyone home safe every day, and that means our passengers, our workforce, and everyone that comes into contact with our infrastructure. So that you have a little bit of an idea, Network Rail is a very big company, and we're divided into 5 different regions, and Manchester is included in the Northwest and Central region, which is the green in the map there on the slide. So if we can move to the next slide, please. So yeah, because Network Rail is a very big company, we have many roles within the company, and they're mainly divided into 4 different business areas. So we have the operations team, which are responsible for the day-to-day operations of the railway, and some of the roles included on there are the signalers, for example, incident response teams, level crossing managers, or for example station customer service teams, which are the people that you see on the platforms dispatching trains, for example, on the train stations. The maintenance teams, they work day and night, and they make sure that the infrastructure is maintained and is in good operation to work, basically. In the engineering side of things, there are several roles in the engineering team, and that includes commercial, design, innovation, digital, asset management team, delivery of projects, and a lot more. Basically, they are responsible for delivering change and improvement of the network. And then finally, the last part is the professional services, and they're basically the glue that keeps everything running in the company. And they include the human resources, marketing, IT, finance, property, legal, business, strategy, and a lot more roles. So in order for you to get an idea of what I was talking about, I've included a little video there that hopefully Jane can click on, and it works so that you can see what I was describing.
You build bridges and tunnels and airports and lovely things. I went, I fancy doing that. That sounds all right.
I think STEM is exciting and engaging.
There's so many engineering sort of roles out there.
But the thing that makes it interesting is how it's applied, what you do, the people you meet, the impact you have.
Now is really a great time to be in engineering because the art of the possible is limitless.
It's about coming to work every day and being excited.
Whatever your passion is, whatever you're interested in, you will find a home in the railway.
The variety that the railway holds.
It's quite mind-blowing about how much opportunity there is out there.
And with continued investment, the sky's the limit.
It's moving so fast and so forward.
You don't know what's around the corner.
If you join engineering now, you'll get to see that innovation.
I like knowing how things work. If you know how something works, you can develop it, put your own idea on it.
Design things and make them come to life. I think that's quite empowering. You can think of these out-of-the-box ideas and see how we can make that work within the railway industry.
You get to see a project from beginning to end where you're really part of delivering something, not just for yourself, for people, for passengers.
I enjoy working for the railway industry. I see it as a big opportunity for me to be able to make a difference.
On the railway, although we do lots of engineering, it still runs on people.
I think more women need to be on the front line.
I'm really looking forward to how we're going to challenge those boundaries that we've had, because it's always been that way.
You shouldn't let anybody stand in the way of what it is that you're trying to achieve with your life.
Now's the time, be involved.
If you can imagine it, you can do it.
10 years from now, I've wanted to change something. I want to see a lot more females around.
I would love to continue being an advocate for women in engineering and getting girls into STEM.
I'd like to play a part in helping change the future of the railway.
Find something that will make you jump out of bed in the morning and go, yeah, I'm going to go and make a difference today.
Engineering's where it's at.
So hopefully you enjoyed that video, and I'll pass now to Harriet so that she can present a little bit about HS2.
So if you haven't heard of High Speed 2, it's a new railway it's going to go all the way from London to Manchester. So High Speed 2 is both the name of the company or that's building it, but also the name of the railway itself. And it's being designed in 3 phases, and phase 1 and phase 2, which is from London up to Crewe, that's in construction at the moment, and phase 2B, which is extension up to Manchester, is in the planning stages and hasn't yet been approved for construction. So the idea is that it's going to connect cities across the UK, and because by connecting the cities, you'll then attract business, because they'll be able to move between cities more quickly. And then because you're attracting business, you'll then attract people. So the idea is that it's going to sort of improve the sort of living in areas across the country. It will provide more capacity on the railways. So at the moment, railways are very overcrowded. You have a lot of services. So by putting in this new line, you'll be able to put more local services on, and you'll also be able to run more freight. And the benefit of this is it takes cars off the roads, it takes trucks off the roads, and therefore it reduces carbon emissions, improves air quality, and reduces the carbon footprint, which is good for everybody. So a couple of sort of quick facts. At the moment, it takes 2.5 hours for you to get by train from Manchester to London. Once we've built all of HS2, that should reduce to 1 hour. And that's because our trains are going to be the fastest in Europe, and they're going to travel at almost the same speed as a Formula 1 car, if you can imagine that. And every train will carry as many passengers as 3 whole jumbo jets. So next slide, please. So we build the railway in phases. So first we have to plan and design it, and then we need to do our enabling works. And this is where we do surveys of what's currently in the ground or on the ground on the route, and then we need to clear it to make way for the railway to be built. So that could be clearing vegetation, it could be moving gas mains and water mains out of the way, it could be making changes to the existing rail network, which will affect what Daniela does, because we need to pass near it. We then build our main works, and that's really building our stations and building all of the structures that the track and the railway will sit on. Once that's in place, we then install our track, put in the cables, put in the overhead lines, put in everything in that actually is needed for the operation of the railway. And then obviously we can't run our railway until we have trains, so we then need to manufacture our rolling stock. Next slide, please. And then in terms of what we're building, so if you could imagine that trains, especially high-speed trains, can't go around bends very quickly, and they can't do changes in ground level very quickly. And the UK is quite bumpy and has a lot of things in the way. So we need to change the level of the ground so that it works for our trains to go over it. So we need to build embankments and cuttings. We need to, where we have sort of large valleys or lakes, we need to build viaducts to cross it. Where we have towns in the way or we have a hillside, we may need to tunnel through it. And obviously there are lots of roads and railways and canals and rivers that we need to cross on bridges. So we have a lot of structures that we need to put in place. But also we're conscious that we're affecting the environment, and we're affecting the plant life and the wildlife in the areas that we're in. So we will be building new ponds, planting new trees, and even building bug hotels and bat houses for the species that we're impacting to live in. Okay, next slide. So just to see who's paying attention and been awake, I've got 4 questions for you. So if you think of whether it's high speed 2 or network rail, can you tell me who builds the new tracks, who operates the stations, who maintains the railway, and who will run the trains? And if you put your answers with 1, 2, 3 or 4 in the Q&A. Agree. One is network. Oh, sorry, no. I'll change that. No. One is high speed 2. So high speed 2 are building the new railway. Try number 2. Who operates the stations, do you think? Give it a few more seconds. Okay, the answers are that so HS2 builds the new tracks, Network Rail will operate the stations and maintains the railway, and number 4 was a bit of a trick question because actually it's run by separate operating companies, but they are working on behalf sort of Network Rail. Okay, next slide. And now Daniela will talk to you about the interface where Network Rail and HS2 need to work together.
Yeah, so as Harriet explained in her slides, in some areas of the projects that are being delivered by HS2 interface with the Network Rail infrastructure. So in order to deliver the project safely and maintain the safe running of the railways, the two companies have to work together to deliver the construction and the projects. So we have in Network Rail asset protection teams that do this. They do, for example, engineering assurance, verification of the projects where they review the design to see that it's designed according to standards. For example, they have construction management teams to oversee the delivery of the project and to make sure that, you know, our railway is safe to run on during these works. So I have a few photos in hopefully will make you get interested in civil engineering, the railway industry. A few photos of the works that are ongoing for phase 1 for HS2. So the photo on the top in Berkswell, here HS2 is going to go over the railway lines in a viaduct. And so to facilitate this, Network Rail had to alter the overhead line masts that support the cables that basically supply the energy for the trains to run on the network. So you can see there they're piling to put new masts in to make way for the HS2 viaduct. On the bottom photos, so this area is close to Coventry, Princess Risborough and Calvert. And here HS2 is going to run parallel or even under our infrastructure. So they are delivering new structures for Network Rail to use in the future, for example, a new underbridge, as you can see there on the photo. So next slide, please. A bit more on the works that HS2 are doing with Network Rail, and this is in West Ruislip, a bit closer to the London end of phase 1 on HS2. You can see there on the left side, it's the new tunnel portal for the HS2 lines, or where the HS2 lines are going to run in the future. The Network Rail infrastructure is located just behind the wood paneling that you can see on the photo on the far end. So they're doing quite a big excavation to create the tunnel portals that will serve as a beginning of the HS2 tunnels. So on the photo on the right, you can see a little bit of the machine that is going to create these tunnels. It's a tunnel boring machine, a TBM in short. And what it does is it works a little bit like an earthworm. So as it goes into the soil, it excavates the soil, moves the material out of the way, and at the same time it creates the rings that will support basically the soil around the tunnel. So they're creating the structure as well as excavating. So as you can imagine, the tunnels are going to be quite long, and there's a lot of material that's going to be excavated by the TBM in its way into London. So that the material that is excavated needs to be moved out of the way and then be selected to potentially be reused somewhere else. So Network Rail and HS2 worked together to create a conveyor belt, which is the photo you can see on the middle. And the conveyor belt, what it does is it moves that material that is being excavated by the TBM from the tunnel portal into a selected area where it can be basically sectioned into different piles to reuse or maybe put somewhere else. So the conveyor belt is a bit like the conveyors you can see in the supermarkets, and they move the items from where you put them into the cashier. So this is more or less the same thing. And this one in particular goes over the existing Network Rail line. Next slide, please. So we talked a little bit about you know, being an engineer and what an engineer, civil engineer is and what they do. But what do you need to be an engineer? So we obviously know that technical skills and knowledge are important. So maths and science are important because they create the base knowledge for you to design and deliver structures that are safe for people to use. But they're not the only skills that an engineer needs to be a civil engineer or be any other engineer. So the three main skills of today's civil engineer is judgment and decision, critical thinking, and time management. And these are key to deliver projects that think outside the box, that create efficient solutions, and obviously deliver on time is a very important item of delivering a project. Another skill set that is becoming more and more important nowadays is the digital technology skill set. Civil engineers use, for example, building information models, BIM models, to see on a 3D scale, you know, how the project works during all the construction phases and at the end. We are using more and more artificial intelligence, big data management, and even robotics. So it's not just about the technical side. There's a lot more to being an engineer. Next slide. Oh, this is Harriet now.
And for both High-Speed 2 and Network Rail, not everyone that's employed is an engineer, and we need a vast range of skills and expertise in other areas as well. So I've shown some pictures on this slide, but people we need range from sort of archaeologists, so we need to know what's in the ground before we dig it up. We need environmental engineers, so both we need ecologists to look after our wildlife, but also people to sort of monitor and measure how we're impacting air quality, you know, how much dust we're creating, how much noise we're producing, things like that. We need people that work in town planning and that can talk to the councils, and so that we make sure that what we're building we are actually allowed to build, and that we're legal. We have people that go out and talk to the community. So obviously for a project like this, for either Network Rail or High-Speed 2, we affect a lot of people. There are a lot of people all along the routes that we are operating in, and we need to make sure we understand what they need. We're talking to them, they know what we're doing and why. And so we have specific groups of people that do that are very good at communication. They understand what we're doing and they go out and talk about it. We need project managers, cost managers, risk managers to make sure that what we're doing is on time and in budget, and that we understand, you know, we can project what we're doing when. And then we need people on the ground. So obviously we do need the construction workers, we need the maintainers, we need the signalling engineers. So a very big range of different types of people are all involved on an engineering type project. Next slide, please. And there are different ways into engineering, into any of these roles really that we've talked about. So within, I suppose, the engineering industry, both High Speed 2 and Network Rail are client organisations. So they are the people with the money that ultimately have decided what they want and are employing others to provide it for them. But then you could be a consultant, you could be somebody that designs or plans and be a consultant, or you could be a contractor, who are the people that build the railways and do the works on site. And so for different types of roles, there are different routes in. And the more common ones, you can go through university and go into a graduate scheme. Quite often university degrees are called sandwich degrees, and they include a year in industry. So they include you working in an engineering office for that year. You get hands-on experience of what you'll be doing. Or you can have summer placements as well. So you can go into, again, a company maybe for a couple of months in the summer, see if it's the sort of thing you want to do, get a feel for what it is, and then decide if you want to go into that as a full-time job. We also have apprenticeships. So these are ways that you can be employed and be paid to do a job, but you will also get formal training that leads to a recognised qualification. So I know both Network Rail and HS2 have large apprenticeship programmes, and so I'd say to most sort of large employers nowadays. And I was lucky enough to be working with some of the first apprentices on High Speed 2, and so I think they started in 2017 or 2018, and they've now gone through a full apprenticeship programme. And one I'm quite close to, Clara, she's now taken her project management apprenticeship. She's a full-time project manager on HS2, and she's working towards her project management degree. So there is opportunities to convert apprenticeships into degrees if you decide that's what you want to do. If you want more information, both Network Rail and HS2 have careers information on their websites, and I've put the links on the slide. Okay, next please. And now we have an activity for Daniela to talk about.
So we're hoping that we are effectively delivering a feature that you want to maybe try in civil engineering, and to open the door a little bit at the work of a civil engineer or an engineering team. We introduced here an activity about designing a station, or in this particular case, a space in between two stations. So you can see there the photo on the left. You can see the existing Manchester Piccadilly station. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a very big station. It's the main station in Manchester. And in the future, when HS2 Phase 2B comes to Manchester, they will arrive just by the existing Network Rail station, and they will build their own station there. This means that there's going to be a space in between the Network Rail station and the future HS2 station, and we want you to think of solutions between the two stations. So if we go to next slide. So the first thing you need to ask yourself is, what is a rail station and what is it used for? You can use the Q&A function to answer those. And the other question is, who are the users of the railway station? So these two are main to deliver an efficient space between the two stations. But to help you out with answering this question, HS2 have a really nice video on Curzon Street Station, and if we can play it.
So we're standing here at Curzon Street site, where our dedicated team really have been hard at work preparing the site for the build of Birmingham's first new high-speed railway station, which will be right here in the heart of Birmingham city centre. Birmingham Moor Street is just over to the right of me. The Millennium Point building and the historical Curzon Street building, they're based at the north of the site, and the existing Birmingham Rugby railway line actually runs along the south side, so it's just adjacent to where I'm stood now. So much like Birmingham New Street is, Curzon Street Station will become what will be the gateway to other major cities across this country, a landmark and a destination in itself. It will be a catalyst for regeneration in the East Side District here, and will be creating tens of thousands of new jobs, new homes, and about 600,000 square metres of commercial development.
It's really important to us to involve the community, the city, future passengers in the design of the station. We've been talking to people through a range of different methods, including events, meetings, online activities. We spoke to about 2,000 people as part of that process, and we've asked for their views. They told us that certain things were important to them. The heritage of Birmingham, the open spaces around the station, how environmentally friendly it is and its sustainability. And now we've been able to feed that into the design as we approach the final planning stages. Over coming weeks and months, we'll be doing engagement events across the city, so everyone who may use the station in future, or who may see the station or feel connected to it, will have the chance to see the latest designs.
So when fully operational, there'll be 9 trains per hour travelling in each direction, leaving from 7 dedicated high-speed platforms. So the station will not only be for the high-speed rail passengers, it will be fully integrated. It will have an extended tram network. It will offer pedestrian, cycle, taxis, bus and conventional rail connections to the rest of the city and the wider West Midlands. So our vision is for this to be an iconic landmark for Birmingham, and to ensure that what we're planning to build here on this site meets the needs of those future passengers for high speed too.
Sorry, I was muted again. That was a bit of an introduction into Curzon Street Station, which is going to be the future HS2 station in Birmingham. But it's very similar to the project that we're asking you to think about, which is, you know, the future HS2 station in Manchester, and how it will work with its surrounding area and the Manchester Piccadilly station, the Network Rail station that is there now. So I hope you've thought about the 2 questions that we have here for you today. As I said, you can use the Q&A to answer them. And we can maybe go to Harriet for follow-up. Wait a little bit for some of the answers from you. So do you think a railway station is just a place to catch a train, or do you think other things can be done on a railway station, for example? So yeah, I got an answer there, and it is exactly as you say. So it is a transport hub, so it usually connects with other means of transport, but it is more, so you can have shops there, and you can have maybe other things that are of interest. So if we go to the next slide. So as someone published there, we have to consider when we're designing a space within a station, we have to consider the passengers, the retailers, and the neighbors, so the surrounding area, because they might want something out of the station as well. And it's important to consider several other aspects within the design. So it's important to consider the environmental impact and the setting. It's important to consider the mobility, accessibility, and connectivity to other means of transport. And nowadays, more and more important to consider sustainability. So Harriet, do you have something more to add?
Yep, and really just to say that if you found that interesting, then you can go further and take these things and look at how you would design the space for the different users and taking into account the different constraints. And there is a link below to where you can find a sort of a pack and more information about how you could develop this this activity and some more activities as well, including one looking at how you might design a station of the future. So thinking of what life could be like in the future, and so what would be needed, and whether you'd have the same users or whether they might be different. Okay, and then I think next slide. Do you have any questions for us? Please put them in the Q&A.
So we have had one come through already, which is just a nice little question. The best bits about your jobs? Harriet, you're up there already, so I'm going to go to you first, if that's all right.
I think I like that every project is a new challenge. So particularly if you're looking at new transport links or tunnelling, everyone's different, so you're in a different part of the country, the landscape is different, the constraints are different, so nothing's the same. Everyone you have to come to with a completely open mind and look at the new challenges and come up with new solutions. So I think that's part of it. And the other part is the people in the teamwork. So you're always working with a really good team. Everyone's got different ideas and different ways of working, and that's a really nice dynamic.
And Daniela?
Yeah, so there's two aspects for me. The first one is my job gave me the opportunity to work in different countries and meet different cultures and people, and that is amazing. And the other part of it is working for the railway industry, for Network Rail. My days are never the same. I can be in the office in a meeting, or reviewing a report, and the next day I'm on site and in direct contact with the assets and doing inspections and delivering for the passengers and seeing the end result. So that is really interesting.
Brilliant. And then I'm not too sure who's best placed to answer this, but can you do engineering apprenticeships? It might be worth talking about the different types of apprenticeships, because it wouldn't just be one apprenticeship, would it?
Yeah, so maybe Richard, that is online, maybe he can help with this, because he helps HS2 with the apprenticeships that they develop. Let me see if he's...
Hi everyone. Yeah, so I'm part of the education team, so I don't manage the apprentices, but I do hear a bit more about what they're doing. I think every company will have different options for apprenticeships, but I think something that's really important to remember is that there's a really wide range of apprenticeships. So I think in the past people thought apprenticeships were things like hairdressing and being a car mechanic, and you can still do apprenticeships in that, but now you can do a whole range. So you can do engineering apprenticeships, and we do take on those people more in our supply chain compared to on HS2 Limited, because we're more of a management company. So we tend to take on lots of apprentices doing project management, because that's an important part of the client organisation who are managing the project. And if you're a project manager, you have to understand a lot of the information about the engineering in order to make decisions about what's being done when, but you're not necessarily coming up with the plans and things yourselves. I've got a student who I know about who recently started as a BIM technician on an apprenticeship with one of our suppliers. So he's really interested in computer designs, and he's making these 3D models. We've recently been having apprentices start as tunnelling operatives, building the tunnels going underneath London and the home counties. So there really is such a range. It'll always be quicker to tell you the things you can't do in apprenticeship than the things you can. There's all sorts of options. And our website's got a careers site where you can see all of the different jobs, including apprenticeships that are available in our supply chain. The government's got the national apprenticeship website where you can sort of see all the apprenticeships in the country, and there's loads of different options. So yeah, I think it's a really exciting way of getting into work, because you're getting paid for it, and also you're getting experience as you go. I think one of the other things that's nice about apprenticeships is you try a few different things. So for example, if you're a project management apprenticeship, you might spend sort of 3 to 6 months working with a commercial team and 3 to 6 months working with an engineering team, and it means you sort of try out different things and find out what you like and what you don't like. Whereas sometimes if you start a job, you end up being stuck in doing something you don't want to do, or if you start a university course, you're stuck in doing something you don't want to do. There's a bit more flexibility of apprenticeships. But yeah, definitely, I think engineering, apprenticeships are a great way to get into it.
And this ties in nicely to the apprenticeship question. What subjects should I study at college? But I suppose this can translate to the school setting as well. When young people are selecting choices for the GCSEs, what subjects best align to this industry and the job roles within it? And that is up for anybody.
So maybe if I go first, in terms of if you want to go to a university route for engineering, then maths and physics or science-based subjects are still maths-based subjects are still key. But I think if you want to come in for an apprenticeship, that's, Richard will correct me, that's probably less important. And if you want to do one of the wider, so one of the other sort of career elements I talked about, there'll be different parts and different subjects required.
Thanks, Harriet.
So just to add on to what Harriet said, we in Network Rail, we have people working in a variety of different departments, and sometimes they have a chance to try different things. And I think as long as you're willing to learn along the way, there's always a way from more traditional subjects into engineering. You just need to have an open mind and be willing to learn. And I think as long as you have that disposition, you're bound to be successful.
I think that's a wonderful point, and I think teachers would be really happy that you've said that, because it was not pre-scripted at all. And just on the topic of subjects, a subsequent question from me would be, within school they talk a lot about softer skills and not just hard skills that are relevant to different subjects, but softer skills young people should be developing. If there's any ones that really jump out at you within your roles. I know communication is basically across the board, but
so communication is important, I think, for any type of profession. Although, as I said, as long as you're willing to put the time into it, you can always build onto that. But there's also time management. I mean, being able to see a project through means ticking boxes as you go. So being diligent and you know, just being active to fulfill the objectives of a project, for example. So I don't know if Harriet has any other ideas to add on to that.
No, I agree. I think also, just like there were many different types of jobs, there were many different types of engineer. So you can be better at different elements and still fit in well. You know, you can be very good at the detail, say, and you'll fit into one type of role, or you'll be very good at the bigger picture and the sort of talking to lots of people, and you'll fit into a slightly different role. But we need all of them. So there's no one set of absolute skills that is an engineer. It's just you need all of them in sort of varying degrees.
Brilliant, thanks both. Another question is, are there many women in the industry? Is it still male dominated? And then subsequent questions from me would be, are you seeing a change in this? Because it was traditionally a male industry. Yeah, Harriet, you're still on the screen, and then Daniela, I'll pass over to you after.
I think it's, and I expect it's the same with Daniela, but tunnelling is a particularly male part of the engineering industry. So, but we're definitely seeing an improvement. So whereas when I started 20 years ago, I was the only female in tunnelling in my company. Now there are, you know, it's not 50-50 with the men, but it's maybe more 30-70. And in high speed 2, I'd say that again, in I suppose in the harder engineering subjects, it's still more male dominated, but there are more women, and also women are more at an equal level than they were when I started. So you have far more senior women than you did. So there's a definite improvement.
Wonderful, positive change. Daniela, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, so diversity and inclusion are or is a very important theme within the railway industry, and that's why we have groups like the Women in Rail that I'm a part of, and we're basically just trying to break through barriers and make what was impossible before possible. So we have you know, more train drivers that are women. We have more people working in maintenance that are women, and we have more people working in offices and engineering that are women. So, and a more broader, diverse workforce just opens the door for the possibilities to be endless, really, because there's more people thinking outside the box, including more of the passengers as well into the solutions, because the passengers aren't just male, they're women as well. They're people with disabilities, they're people with different cultural backgrounds. So if you have a diverse workforce, you're able to deliver for everyone, basically. So yeah, there's more and more women and more people of diverse backgrounds into the industry, definitely.
That's wonderful, thank you. Harriet,
I'd add one more thing to that, which is that we still have more opportunities than we have people to fill them. So we will take, you know, if women are interested, then absolutely, you know, they can come in and form part of the team. It's not that we're pushing them out, it's that we need them to we need you to want to come and join us.
Amazing. And then the last question, no more have come through, is for Harriet, I'm assuming, and when will HS2 finish in Manchester?
I should have predicted this and I didn't, and I have to admit I don't know. It's currently going through what we call the hybrid bill. So it goes through Parliament, it has to go through the Houses of Commons and the House of Lords, and it's currently in that cycle. And I would imagine it's probably about 10 years away. But Richard, have you got any better answer?
I'd have to look it up. So I mean, we had the thing called the what was it? The integrated rail plan came out before Christmas, and that has made a few changes to how HS2 is going to be delivered. So I think our company is kind of like just reassessing everything and making sure we've sort of checked everything carefully before we make new announcements on that. But I think from your point of view, as you know, young people, something that's worth considering is that you're probably in the perfect position job-wise, because it's going to take couple of years, maybe 2-3 years to get everything through Parliament and completely signed off, and then we're going to see a big jump in the amount of jobs. So sort of from sort of 2 or 3 years time, we'll see all those enabling works jobs and environmental jobs, and then sort of 3 or 4 years time, we'll start to see all the sort of heavy engineering jobs going. So, you know, from your point of view, all those jobs are going to be coming just as you're leaving school or university, and then by the time that you've sort of, you know, finished that, then you'll be able to, you know, take advantage of the railway to be sort of travelling on. So I think the timing is good for you.
Brilliant, thanks Richard. Nothing else has come through, so just a question from me that I really like to finish these sessions on, because hindsight is 2020. Advice that you'd give to your younger selves. I'm going to go in order of my screen. Richard, you're up first. Doesn't have to be too serious.
I think one of my bits of advice is to sort of think outside the box with careers a little bit. So I actually studied ecology at university, and after I finished university, I just could not find any jobs that would, yeah, fit the experience I had, because I hadn't got a lot of experience because I'd only been to university, and I was looking for like the wildlife trusts and ecology companies. I never even considered the idea that construction companies might be taking on ecologists. And I think it's just worth thinking that whatever your skill is, if you're a musician, if you are an engineer, if you're an environmentalist, if you're, you know, someone who's good at writing and you've got English, you know, qualification, there's jobs that you wouldn't expect in companies that you wouldn't expect. So just look as widely as you can, rather than thinking, okay, environment job, you've got to work for an environmental organisation. It's not as simple as that. There's always more options out there.
Wonderful, thank you. Daniela, you're next.
Yeah, so I think as an advice to my younger self, I would probably say don't take things such so seriously, especially when you make a mistake. Because I would, every time I would, in my view, fail or not do things exactly as correctly as they should, I felt a bit down. And nowadays, with, you know, years of experience, I know we don't have to know everything. The important thing is recognize that we don't know everything and just search for the information before we give an answer. So yeah, just take it easy, and you know, be easy with yourself, basically.
I think that's lovely advice. Lovely. Harriet, advice to your younger self?
I think it's probably take every opportunity and assume that you can do it. You know, you may not know everything about it, but assume that you can and you'll learn it, rather than you don't know it and you can't, and just make the most of it.
Yeah, very true. That's it. We've had no more questions come in. I'd like to thank all our speakers today. I have found it truly very interesting. So thank you to Richard, Daniela and Harriet for presenting and supporting the Meet Your Future campaign. If you would like more information about careers and options within Greater Manchester and across the city region, then you can go to gmax.co.uk and you can find out information there. Alternatively, speak to your careers leader in your school or college and they'll be able to support and signpost you. That's it from us. Thanks very much. Have a nice rest of your day.